So I've been running this build for 3 weeks now, and I've gotten about 7 bricks per day from the Stash and Dash, which is absolutely crazy. All of these bricks here in my inventory are what I grew just from this room in those 3 weeks. So let's see how it's done. Alright, so here's the blueprint of the build. You're going to need 3 large storage shelves, 2 safes, a spore spawning station, 5 mushroom beds, an AC unit, 8 drying racks, and 1 brick press. The price for all that equipment is $8,280, and then to stock that equipment, you're going to need 40 substrate, 40 fertilizer, 40 PGR, 50 grain bags, and 50 spore syringes. And the price for all those materials is $11,800 for a total cost of $20,080 to get it fully up and running. All right, so let's actually start building this thing. Let's just start with the drying racks. Just put 8 along this wall here. Then in the next corner, put our lockers like this. Follow it up with a large storage shelf. Now we do a sort of semicircle of the mushroom beds with the AC unit in the middle. Now up against this garage door, we're going to put the mushroom spawn station up against the left side of the wall. Like that. The safe here. Now 2 storage shelves. Then our brick press up against the drying racks. And our last safe up against that. Alright, now that everything is set up, let's start assigning these routes. So put everyone on the locker, obviously. Put the handler on the brick press. For the first route, we're going to go from the loading bay into the safe. You can ignore that van for now. The safe is sort of our buffer, so we go from the safe into both of these storage racks. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that backwards. Safe into the storage rack. Safe to the other storage rack. And then for the fourth one, we have to go from this left storage rack into the spawn station. And that's because, for whatever reason, the botanist, he won't... when you assign a supplies rack, he won't pull from that rack to start using this. And I believe there's also a bug where he won't actually move the output of this rack into where it's supposed to go. So we also have to do that for the handler. So the handler's 5th one goes from the spawn station to the storage rack on the right. And these last 2 are just probably because of a bug. If there's an update that fixes that, you can get rid of these 2. Alright, let's set up these mushroom beds. Select all of those. It doesn't really matter if you leave the spawn as any or set it to shroom spawn. I think it doesn't actually make a difference. For additive 1, we're going to do fertilizer, and then for additive 2, we're going to do PGR, and that's all we're going to do. And I've done some math and I've done some testing, and I believe this is optimal, at least for doing this in the storage locker. Destination, set this to this large storage rack. And I believe that is all those set up. So drying racks, select, oops, we gotta unselect those first. Alright, select all of the drying racks. Set them to heavenly quality, put the destination as the brick press. And then you can do the brick press. Oh, I already got it set to the safe. I'll redo it again just to show you. But yeah, set it to that safe right there. Now let's assign these employees. I'm going to assign the bald guy to a locker and then also set him. His supplies are going to be this rack. And he's going to be working the drying racks. There we go. So whoever is doing the drying racks needs to pull from this storage rack. Now for the other botanist. Give him a locker. His supply rack is going to be the one that's next to the mushroom beds. Then assign him the mushroom beds and also the mushroom spawn station. Alright, all the equipment is placed, all the routes are set, now we just need to stock this up. Alright, to get this stocked up, you're going to need 40 mushroom substrates. And 40 fertilizer. Set those into their appropriate spots. And then you need 40 PGR. Then you need 50 grain bags. 4 go in here and 1 in the safe. Then you need 50 spore syringes, just like the grain bags, 4 in there, 1 in the safe. And that is it for stocking. Alright, now we can just start paying our employees and get this thing running. Remember, don't give the guy who is, drying the mushrooms any money until we actually start getting like a backlog of mushrooms. There's a weird behavior with the botanist where, let's say this drying rack already has mushrooms drying, but the input slot down here is empty. And this one is completely empty. It doesn't have anything drying, nothing in the input slot. For whatever reason, the botanist will sometimes put mushrooms into the input slot of this one and just wait for these to finish to dry those instead of putting them into the completely empty rack. So what I like to do is I like to wait until this has produced enough mushrooms to completely fill the input slots of all of the drying racks, and then I start paying that botanist to start drying, and that way they're all actually running at once. So yeah, I'll fast forward until this is all stocked up and we'll start drying. Real quick, a quick note about how restocking this thing works is pretty simple. You're going to want to use the deliveries, it's the easiest way. So, since we have 5 mushroom beds, I like ordering in multiples of 5. You can technically order 32 ingredients, or 32 of each ingredient, and that'll fill the van. But like I said, I like doing multiples of 5. You can ignore this on the right, this is a mod, but you don't need this to keep it going. Just every time you see that there's no van outside, go ahead and send an order like this in, and it'll kind of just sit there for a while actually, as the handler is just pulling from the van. He puts it into the storage, or to the buffer chest, and then from the buffer chest into these racks as they get used. So that van will be there for a couple of days, maybe 3, and then yeah, just order a new delivery and it'll keep the thing stocked. Alright, we got a harvest coming in here. So we got a full storage rack. I don't know if something just bugged out, but he was just pulling a bunch of stuff out of the shelf, and I checked his inventory and he was filled with shrooms, so I don't know if that was some weird glitch, but anyway, we got a whole rack of shrooms here, and I actually like filling the drying racks myself instead of letting the botanist do it, because I'm pretty sure he's just going to do what I was telling you before, where he fills one rack completely, like both slots, instead of dispersing it out across all of the drying racks. So I like filling them up here. I suppose I should set the time scale back to normal. There we go. So yeah, we got all the drying racks filled here. And now I can pay the other botanist. So he's going to put these all up, and then he'll start taking these mushrooms and start putting them into the input slot of all of the other drying racks, and those will be just waiting for their chance to go. Alright, so that is the build. If you've done everything properly, you should be able to expect about 7 bricks of heavenly mushrooms per day, which is quite a lot, especially considering how cheap this property is. If you've enjoyed this build and want to see my upcoming bungalow build and a mixing build I'm doing, well, not necessarily a mixing build, but an explanation of why you should be using a 2-stage instead of a 4-stage mix, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you later.